Hey, thank you for tuning in today for this episode of Christian Girl. This is episode 4, and we're here today. I have a guest speaker here, Mr. Dajaun Freeman, and we're just going to get a little glimpse. He's a world-renowned bodybuilder. I've trained with him as well, and here's just a little glimpse into what he does.
For me, this for my son and my daughter, my family tree and their daughter. I'm the chosen one, I'm wearing a jacket. I was down, now I'm up, now I was the underdog, now look who be left. I'm better than you guys, the champion.
All right. He is also a man of God, which is why I have him here today. And you guys meet Mr. Dajaun Freeman.
How you doing? Watching that video, taking it back right now, as I'm getting myself ready for my next competition.
That's good. I like how you, like I said, you balance that. Yes. And like I said, I've trained with you as well. And yes. I know you're very serious about what you do. You're very passionate about what you do. But the biggest thing that I noticed about you when I first started working with you was the fact that you were a man of God. You were a man of faith. And we were able to have those conversations about God and just kind of share ideas and share things that's going on. And we were able to relate on things that were going on in the world. So my first question to you is, how do you balance God, purpose, and family life?
You know what? I pretty much, follow what the word says. I put the Lord first in everything I do, right? So I seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, all things be added to me. That's like my scripture. I kind of like live by daily, so as I first wake up, I seek him. I get in prayer, I'm listening to my sermons, my word. And then after that, everything just kind of falls into play. He allows me to give, more love to my family, more passion to like my training, my business, my coaching, everything else, so long as I do that first, and if I do things out of order, then that's whenever my life goes out of order, so to speak. So that's how I tend to put that in that balance, right? As I seek him first, he's going to give me more love to get to my family, right? My wife, my kids, and then from, after that, it's going to be, to my business, my clientele, everything like that. So that's how I balance that. So I tend not to let that get out of whack. And then if I do, then, everything's going to start kind of crumbling down, so to speak. So, yeah.
That's good. Like one of the best things that I heard you say right there is like, you're a man of order and organization. God is a God of order.
Yes.
It's God is the head first, and then you have your spouse, and then your children, and then you have your ministry and work, but your ministry is your work, which is great.
Yeah.
And I think that's great how you balance that out. And I know none of us are perfect.
Yeah.
So I know that you do have some times where it might get a little hard for you to try to balance those things. So I would say, can you name like maybe an example of a time where it was hard for you to balance your purpose as far as doing what you love doing, the bodybuilding and providing for your family, and still having to be a husband and still having to be a father as well?
Yeah. I would say actually right now. So I do have a lot of my competitors that compete, nationwide, and a lot of them, they have shows coming up, and then they do check in with me daily. Right. And so they tend to check in whenever, say for example, when I'm at the gym and I'm training my clientele. Right. So I have that like separate. So when I'm at the gym from 5 a.m. all the way to 7 p.m., whatever it be, then when I get home, I kind of, shut that time off and focus on my family. But like I said, whenever I do have my athletes competing nationwide, they're checking in with me like all hours of the day, right? And ask me 1,001 questions. So I may be with my kids, like happened the other day. I'm holding my youngest son, I'm feeding him. Then I got one of my older clients just asking me 1,001 questions, right? And so then I had to kind of get back to him because, his show is actually in 5 days, right? And so I'm actually leaving to Pittsburgh Monday morning. So I got to go out there and meet him. And then he has 1,001 questions. I got to get back to him, make sure he stays on track, on point. And it does kind of make it difficult because, not only took that time, first half of the day away from my family, and now I got to answer all his questions for the time that I have set aside for my family and kids, but, that's just a part of my job, and it does get difficult. And so I try to, when it comes to that, do my best I can to consolidate, right, and answer them in time, in timely manner. But I, if I am with my family, and then sometimes if, I'm gonna have to like, hey, I'll get back to you in an hour or so when the kids go to sleep, because I don't want to miss that time, with my kids and my wife. So that's around this time where it does get kind of busy like that. So I do the best I can to either answer the question fast or get back to them as soon as my kids are asleep, because that's the precious moments that I have with my family. I don't have a lot of that, especially have a newborn, and then a 2-year-old, and I got a 7-year-old who has ADHD, so he needs a lot of attention too, but around this time where it does get difficult, but I do the best I can. Like I said, we're human.
Right.
Do the best I can.
And do you feel like there are times where you need alone time, which is you and God, or to get your thoughts straight and have conversations with him, like basically looking to him for your strength to do this? Because, your family may look to you as Superman, but you have those times alone by yourself where you're just like, I gotta get that mental break or get that rest. But even though you're ambitious, you keep going. You're like, I gotta provide for my family. I gotta take care of my kids. I gotta be a husband too.
Yeah.
And I know that's a chore within itself as well, and still trying to respond to your clientele as well. So my question is, like, can you kind of dig more deeper into just your time alone with God away from your family?
Yeah. So another reason actually why I have no problem doing long extended periods of cardio. Right. So when I'm doing the Stairmaster for 50 minutes, an hour, even longer than that, right, I'm either listening to my sermons or I'll just have just my head, my ear pods in, just mute, but I'm just talking to the Lord the whole time. Right. And so that's my time to, talk to God, and whatever problems that I have, whatever issues I have, talk to him, pray that he gives me strength, he gives me the knowledge and expertise that he's gifted me with, and my passion to get my clientele, my athletes, to their best, so that is, definitely, whenever I do my cardio, that's the time where I kind of space out, but I'm, just this direct, line with the Lord. Then also too, whenever, my commute is kind of long, kind of like yours is as well. So say, for example, if I'm driving, it takes me 35 minutes to get to the gym commuting, right? I will actually sit in silence during that time too. Sit in silence. I'll talk to the Lord, get in prayer, make sure my will lines up with his will, get my goals on path, like whatever he sets out in front of me, then I just, make sure I stay in perfect fellowship and harmony with him. So that way, he already orders my steps and I just keep walking the path that he has set out before me. And, that's the way I live my life. And then he continues to bless me with my business, my family. We keep expanding, and everything else. So as long as I continue to do that, he continues to, to bless me and my family and everything that I do. And so that's the, in a longer expression or longer explanation, that's the time that I get away, and talk to the Lord intimately one-on-one.
Okay. So what would you say is the hardest thing about being a man of God?
I would say for me, not spoiling or ruining like my witness, right? Because, we're humans, we get in the flesh and our flesh takes over sometimes, right? Me being a 100% disabled veteran, I am diagnosed with severe anxiety, post-traumatic stress syndrome, a couple of different orders just due to things I experienced and dealt with in the military. And so sometimes when I say I don't want to ruin my witness, sometimes those things can kind of take over. Right. And sometimes, the symptoms or things that I deal with and battle with my own self, they kind of take over sometimes. Right. And then when they take over, I don't want to do a kind of an outburst or something that I have based off my diagnosis. And people look at me like, what's wrong with D-Dub? What's wrong with Dub? Right. And then I kind of sometimes when that happens, I'm like, hey, let you know. I mean, I kind of explain to them. Some people already do know, but that's the hardest part for me, right? If I have a flare up during those times, right? Because I don't want to be like, Dub's a man of God, right? But why is he doing X, Y, Z, right? So the best way that I kind of combat that is I kind of keep myself pretty much in prayer 24/7. Right. Again, staying in that perfect fellowship with the Lord, prayer with him. I'm staying in the word daily, morning and the night, listen to my sermons all the time, even when I train. So I'll train for, hour, 15 minutes, 90 minutes, right? That whole time I'm listening to nothing but praise and worship music. So I'm keeping myself, truly like in connection with the Father, right? So that way, I don't have too many incidents where I'm, ruining my witness, by being a man of God, being a man of faith, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's, I could say, the hardest part for me. So if I don't keep myself in fellowship, if I don't keep myself in constant prayer and in the word, right, the flesh will take over. And then my disorders that I'm diagnosed with tend to take over, right? Then I will truly, spoil my witness, right? So, but that's why for me, that's an everyday battle. But I'd rather deal with that in that way instead of being like other veterans and taking multiple medication,
That's good.
To deal with that. And then, a lot of them, they have so many other issues. I talked to a lot of them. I got buddies that were, that served as well with me, and they have a lot of issues, but that medication really just, destroys other aspects of their life. Yeah, they get the other symptom under control.
Right.
But then, they have other issues. And so I'd rather, what? I will deal with this my way, in which I've been doing for many years. And I did have to go through years of therapy with my psychiatrist, at the VA. And he was like, you know what? I'm not going to prescribe you no medication because what you're doing is working. We don't, and then he told me, just keep doing what you're doing, stay in your word daily, keep training. And so that's actually my therapy, me training daily, so that's how that works out for me.
I love that. I love how you kind of touched on that, how you said the psychiatrist said, whatever you're doing, it's working.
Yeah.
Now, we're not telling people to deviate from taking medications or anything like that, but a lot of stuff that we do struggle with can be spiritual.
Yes.
And when you get in your word, and even for me personally, whenever I've been stressed or going through certain things, I've gotten in my word and I notice I'm more peaceful after.
Yeah.
And when you take in that word, you digest that word, you're like, all right, I'm good. Like, I'm not as anxious as I was or having panic attacks. Like, the Lord's word has a way of soothing us and bringing us comfort and calming us down. And I just like how, like you touched on that. And another thing you brought up was basically knowing that God gave you a purpose. So you're training. So even though you're physically training people, you're training people to be better, because when it comes to physical fitness, that's a lot mental.
Yes.
It's mental. And for you to get up and be consistent every day and have a routine and do certain things, that's how everything in life, progresses. Like, if you want, I don't know, if you want that job that you want, you're going to be consistent with it. If you want to eat better, you're going to be consistent with it. If you're going to grow your relationship with God, you're going to be consistent with it. So I feel like you are operating in your part of the body of Christ that you're supposed to operate in, which is helping people become a better version, stronger version of themselves as well. So I think that's great. And it reminds people that we are to bring the Lord with us into all environments that we go into. And when you're at work, like you said, you don't want to ruin the witness, because all of us are not perfect. We're all struggling with something. So I could be at work one day and be tired, and someone come up to me and want to talk to me about something. And I can be so caught up in my computer that I'm like, all right, I'm busy right now. But that could have been a witness.
True.
So as believers, we're called to take God everywhere we go. We're called to carry his light everywhere that we go. And so I think that was a real good point that you pointed out. Like, you don't want to ruin the witness despite your own struggles that you go through. And the Lord tells us to be ready in and out of season.
True.
So we have to be ready whenever someone needs ministry, or whenever someone needs a word, or whenever someone is reaching out and not physically saying it to us, like, hey, I need help, but they're opening up to you and just starting an open-ended conversation with you. So I've had that happen several times on the job, where people just start a conversation and I just shut my laptop. Hey, what's up? What's going on? And then a lot of times, maybe 8 times out of 10, it becomes a witness. So I think that's great. I think that's great. So for you, being a man and also being a Black man in America, I know there's a lot of stigma around, just Black culture. And I know a lot of us are struggling right now. We're struggling with mental health. We're struggling with just life in general. So what would be advice, especially, you coming to God? What was the hardest part about you, like, submitting your will to God, as far as your business, your family, and trusting God to cover your family as you go out here and you try to be everyone's hero. You try to be a hero for your family, your wife, and you try to be there for other people to make them better. But my question is, so what would be something that you would say to someone that's struggling with either mental health or getting closer to God and still trying to build that relationship with him, if that makes sense?
Yeah. So for me, when I was actually out in the world, right, before I got saved, right, I had a really great profession. I was a firefighter, EMT. Actually worked not too far from here on El Segundo. And I thought that was his purpose for my life. I went to, after the military, I went to school, got my degree in fire science with the, EMT school, fire academy, so on and so forth. So I thought that was my purpose. Then shortly after, I would say 4 years down the line, my old department had cutbacks. I got let go. Then from there, I tried to go law enforcement. I did a stint at the post office for a couple of years. And then things ultimately didn't like work out the way, I envisioned it, right? Around this time, I got saved, right? And then also too, when I got saved, I actually got hurt at my old job. It was at the post office. And then I, around that time when I got saved, I kind of broke down, got down, on my knees and talked to the Lord. And I was like, what is your purpose for my life? Right. And then he just kind of reminded me, what was your passion many years ago? Right. So prior to me joining the fire service, I was a personal trainer when I got out the military. Right. That was the first job I did. I loved it. Loved helping people, love changing people's lives, getting them healthier, so on and so forth. So fast forward to the future when I'm at this moment and he showed me, he's like, well, what you love doing the most? And when it brought back fitness, I made my way back into the fitness world, fitness industry, training, coaching. At the time of, got into running, managing nutrition stores. So that was, I felt when I got down and I prayed, and he kind of reminded me of that, was his way of like lining, my will with his will, so to speak, right? Lining that up. Okay, all right, running back to like my love. Then after that, I continued to pray on it. I'm like, all right, this is what you want me to do, continue want me to do in my life. I will keep pursuing it, right? But, this is your perfect will for my life, please allow, keep opening the doors, right? And every single step, he kept opening the doors, so on and so forth, right? When I was running and managing the nutrition shops, and then I started taking on clientele afterwards. Then all of a sudden, my clientele overshadowed hours and the money I was making at the nutrition shop. Then I started doing that. So it came to that point where I take a leap of faith and was like, all right, God, if this is what you want me to do 100%, I will do it. But I do have a family. And if I leave this solid income and do this full time, I have faith that you will cover it. And let alone soon as literally that first week, soon as I stepped away, I picked up 4 or 5 new clients that overshadowed what I was making at the nutrition shop. And so every time I took them steps with him guiding me, I was like, all right, this is, this is the will for my life, and everything I'm doing is lining up perfect. And then so every time I did that and took a leap of faith, he kept showing up and showing out, so to speak, right? So this is what I knew this was my passion and calling was. Every step I took, he kept adding more, adding more, adding more. So whenever I started doing that, hey, I just kept like seeking him first because, and then also too, in training, you have the good and bad months, right? During the holidays, some people tend to leave and so on and so forth, right? But no matter what, my bills were always paid, always had a roof over my head, everything he always ended up providing, right? And so that's the best advice I can give people, right? Once you align your will up with the Lord's will, and if it's 100% like what he blesses, he will keep opening doors for you. If it's not for you, he will close them doors, right? He can lock it, right? And so, but if it's his will, he will keep opening doors. You just got to keep trusting him, right? He will order your steps. You just got to keep taking, you just got to follow in his footsteps, so to speak, right? And so that's the best advice I can give, for myself. And then also too, the touch again, like what you're talking about with dealing with mental health and everything else like that, right? Obviously, I dig in my word daily, right? And so that's how I personally battle it. And then, obviously fitness, again, that's my outlet, right? But no matter what I do, like I always put the Lord first, seek him first, everything that I do, right? And he tends to help me in every single aspect of it. So now it's just like I have the utmost faith. Like no matter what I do, no matter what I'm going through, I'm like the Lord's gonna take care of it, right? I built that much faith. I can lose like 10 clientele tomorrow, whatever. I hope that it doesn't happen, but I know he's still gonna take care of me and my family. My mortgage is gonna be paid, food's gonna be on the table. And my family is gonna be taken care of to the utmost. So but that took just like anything, just like we talked about, like, building a routine, a regimen, so on and so forth, right? It took me years to get to that point, right? But now I'm at the point where I was like, God, no matter what, let me take the wheel. You got this, right? So no matter what I go through in my life, I just keep seeking him first, keep staying in prayer, lining my will up with his will. And that's what I teach, like a lot of the, the athletes that I coach and train, right? Some of them, all the way down to 18, 19. And I got one of my oldest athletes, 58 years old, right? And I'm still teaching them, things about the word, and then they look up to me, no matter, some of the guys I'm younger than, but they still look up to me as a spiritual leader, right? Or they pick me like, hey, because, you're a man of God, and then you do X, Y, Z. That's why I chose you to be my coach, right? And so that's, again, and I know that's my purpose. So now it also, too, allows me to continue to stay deep in my faith and deep in the word, because now I got 30, 40, male athletes looking up to me, right? And so it's like, all right, now I really have to, this is my ministry, right? That's how I look at it. This is my ministry, right? And so I don't want to like let them down, right? And so then I want to be that figure, like, but not for like selfish means, right, by any means, but obviously, to glorify the Father in the kingdom, and always lead them first to the Lord, at everything I do. Right. So I'm always mentoring them, not just through physical fitness and everything else, but whenever they're going through stuff, and they go through a lot of stuff, even, when I'm coaching and training them, I'll give them that one-on-one, but I was like, you know what? Let's pop out the word. Here's some scripture. It's snap. This will help me get through it. Right. I had a guy the other day, I just gave him tons of scripture. Read that, brother. I'll pray for you. Right. But he's like, I'll read the scripture. So this is my ministry. And then that's the best advice I, continue to give my guys on a daily basis, right? And as long as I'm doing it and actively engaging in it, doing it every day, I'm just being, fulfilling my role, for the Lord's plan for my life.
Would you? Well, I'm pretty sure I know what your answer is.
Yeah.
But would you say, just for everyone else to hear it, would you say that your working out helps you with your mental health?
Most definitely.
Yes.
Most definitely.
And then, of course, staying in your word helps with your mental health.
Yes.
Okay. And also, a quick question, just transparency. So you're married.
Yes.
Beautiful wife, beautiful children. So how does that balance with being so ambitious and keeping the wife happy?
Has its moments, right? So no matter what I tend to do or think I'm doing, like, all right, so sometimes, right, I'm paying all the bills, I got food on the table, this and that. So my wife reminds me like, hey, X, Y, Z, right? And I tend to forget sometimes it's not just monetary or superficial, so to speak, right? Of taking care of all the monetary things in the household, right? Sometimes we do need that time, that date night. And then that's where I struggle with as well. Right. My wife would tell me, hey, we haven't had a date night in a while. And I'm just like, oh yeah. Sometimes I don't think about that because I'm so engaged and so ambitious as far as being a provider. Right. And so sometimes that's where the flesh takes over, because I feel sometimes I like, okay, even though I got this utmost trust in the Lord, he's going to provide no matter what. Sometimes I may hit a little snag. Well, I got to kind of make this up. Right. And instead of, using that time to, to spend a little bit more time with my wife or going to date night. Right. Then I would try to like figure out how to work on this financially to kind of keep us above. Right. But like I said, I just explained earlier, I know the Lord will take care of that, but sometimes that's when our flesh takes over. Right. So that's what I feel I, do need to like work on more. Right. Spending more, just alone time, her, separate from the kids. Right. But, I'm still a work in progress in that.
Sweet.
Right.
Perfect. So
she does remind me. Yes.
So it makes me think about like kind of in the generation that we're living in today, and just like the masculinity, the male role. So How do you feel about like a lot of the men not really stepping into that leadership role over their families? Because you said a clear word, you said provider.
Yeah.
You said trying to be the provider. And I feel like, just for me personally, I feel like a lot of men don't really step into those provider roles anymore, or they feel they should be provided for, or they're just not going to take responsibility in those roles anymore. So what is your opinion as far as about the generation of men and not being submitted to God and not taking those leadership roles in their families?
Well, I feel like obviously the culture has a lot to do with that, right? And so over time, that's what the kind of culture kind of pushed, right? Me, I tend not to follow what the culture does, right? I follow what the Bible does, right? And so that's what I advise, men to do, right? First off, they got to get spiritually grounded, for one, right? They gotta get in their word, and then once they get in their word, it's gonna be like, okay, I gotta do XYZ for my family. I gotta step into this role. I'm a man, I'm the provider, so on and so forth, right? Now we live in a day and age where, it is tough financially, right? It seems like both parents got to work, in order to provide and put all their kids in like daycare and so on and so forth. And me and my wife, we had to do that, for a time being, right? But, I've been blessed enough to now I can just be the sole provider and my wife can stay at home, raise the kids, and I can just be that 100% provider, figure in the household. And I love doing that, right? And then my dad, credit to him, taught me that. My dad wasn't always the biggest believer. To this day, he still struggles with his faith. But that's what he taught me as a man, being a provider. He always worked, always grinded to provide for me and my family. So I thank him and that generation for showing that, right? So I never forgot that as I was growing up, teenager to being a man now, right? But then again, the thing that put a stamp on that is when I got deeper in my faith, start reading the word and kind of continue to live that way, right? And so that way it overshadows what the culture tends to preach or what media tends to push. And I'm just like, no matter what they do, right, I'm still going to be this male figure, put the Lord first. I'm going to be the head over the household, and do it the biblical way and live the biblical standard.
I love that. And I do love that. Not a lot of men have that perspective nowadays. They don't think I shouldn't be the provider, or I shouldn't, it's this stigma that men are suffering.
Yeah.
That long suffering. Do you feel like, it's like, even in your role as the man of the house, is it suffering, or is it just God just pushing you to be better, or yourself pushing you to be better every day?
I think it's both, right? I know the Lord is continuing to push me to be better, but I just want to be better every day, right? Because I have 3 young boys and I want to set the example for them, right? This is what the male's supposed to do, regardless of what the outside world or, they're trying to push, right? So I like setting that example for my boys. So I want to be better for my boys, right? And the Lord every day pushes me to be better. So that way, even though we're at this point where we're secure now, I want to get to a point where, when the Lord calls me home, they can resume life without me, far as that way, and they can pick up the mantle, so on and so forth. They don't have to worry about nothing. So I work hard for them for the future, right? Set them up on a path of success, right? So that way they don't have to struggle, whenever my time is to go be with the Father. Right. So I look at that. So I set that example for them. And, and my oldest boy, Micah, I'm always kind of hard on him. Right. And then as I'm hard on, I'm teaching him at the same time. The reason why daddy is doing this, the reason why daddy tells you that, is because when you get older, it's going to happen. Even though he's 7 years old, he doesn't really understand that much. I'm still instilling those values in him at that age. And so as I keep doing it, as he get older and older and older, it's going to eventually stick. He's going to remember that. That's why obviously every day, every Sunday we take him to church, take him to Sunday school, right? I'm listening to me. So whenever, I'm in the kitchen doing something, I have my audio Bible playing. I have I have my praise and worship, right? And he asked me questions. Oh, daddy, why are you listening to that, this and that, whatever. right? So that way it's ingrained in him, right, at a young age.
Train him up.
Right?
That is like the physical definition of that scripture when the Lord asks us to train our children up in the way they should go, and they'll never deviate from that. And I think that's beautiful because you're instilling that in your children, so that when they do go out in the world, they have a good mindset. They have what their father put in them, their earthly father put in them, and they also have what their heavenly father instilled in them as well. So you're already setting that tone with them, and I think that's great and that's beautiful. I feel personally that's what a lot of children need, because a lot of children, they leave home and they try to figure things out on their own. They try to figure out their emotions. They try to figure out, why do I feel this way? Or why am I thinking this? Or why are people treating me this way? Or how do I deal with life just in general, just emotionally? And then they don't know how to do that. But when they have the love of a father, physical father in the home, and the mother, they know how to kind of balance their emotions. So you got the father that loves hard, but he's still very meek, but he's more hard with it because, just that masculine, that role. And then you have the mother, she's nurturing, she's loving, she loves her children. And even with that, I think you mentioned one time when we were working out that your wife was helping you like balance your food, your meals out. And I thought that was the most beautiful thing that I heard, because that shows partnership. That shows that she's being a wife, she's being a helpmate. She's being supportive in those areas where you need help, where you can't do it all yourself. A lot of guys be like, I can wash my own dishes, I can cook my own meals, I can do all this. But when you're already out there in the world and you're already being, super dad, you're being everything you can for your family, you need that help at home. Yeah, it's good to come home to a clean place. It's good to come home to a peaceful place. The kids are taken care of. They've been fed. They've gotten their homework done. Your meals are prepped and ready and already weighed out. And you're just coming home because, hey, I've been at work all day, I'm hungry, So I feel like that's what God built the family to be strong in areas where you're weaker, or vice versa with your wife. And I think that that's a beautiful house. And when I say house, I mean how God built it on the rock, and that house will stand because you're not only instilling it in your family, Jesus, and you're also taking it in yourself. You're also putting it out in the world too. So you're doing everything. And it's beautiful. Like I said, with the wife, you come home and she helps you in those areas that you need that help. And you have that humility to let her know, I need help in these areas, because some of you be like, I don't need it, I'm good. But I think that's comes full circle of the family and how God wants the family to function. And for you, what did you come from a two-parent household?
In the beginning, I did. And then probably around, I think, 6th grade, 5th to 6th grade, that's when my parents got a divorce. And so they split up, and then it went to the broken home type of thing. Right. And then I always remember that as a kid, right? Same thing with my wife. So she, they were raised, in a Christian home. Then through infidelity, they broke up as well. Right. So we're both from that. But when we first met, that's one of the conversations that we had, right? Whenever we do decide to have a family, we're never going to let that happen, because we knew what happened to us mentally. And I still remember that to this day. I still struggle with that to this day, right? Of coming from a broken home. Then just like, I never understood until I looked back and reflected on it, that the kids still always think somehow, some way it's their fault. They somehow messed it up. Right. And then I remember going through reliving those emotions. Right. And I never want to put my kids through that. Right. So me and my wife always decided, no matter what, we're going to, there's trials and tribulations in marriage. Right. But no matter what, we're going to 100% stay together. Right. Live a biblical marriage. And we're not going to let whatever destroy or tear our families apart, because we don't want our kids to ever kind of go through that and deal with that mentally. Right. And so, we're never gonna do that, to our kids, right? So we're together to eternity. So that's actually our saying to and eternity and back, right? So
like I said, I love that partnership, and I just love how, like I said, you hold it down, and you show other men that it's possible to be submitted to God, be submitted to your wife, take care of your children. You come out here, you grind, you help other people, and you still feed your family. And I'm not talking about physical food. you still pour into your family. So that's kind of like your bread and butter right there. And your family and God is what keeps you going. So you already know, like, it's just, I just love how you put that, you get that energy from God and your family and you put it into the world, and you're actually receiving from the world, people you help and you train, because I know you get a certain bit of peace when one of your trainees tells you they appreciate you, and you see them winning in their competitions, and they're either crying or getting emotional, or they become family as well, and they become a part of you emotionally, because it's just like, I help do that. I help create that. But once again, we can't do anything without God. And it's because of everything that God pours into you that you're able to keep going. You're able to keep going. And I've noticed with a lot of people, when they get tired, either in their business or in their family or in ministry, it's because they start to do it because of this.
Yes.
They operate through their own flesh and they try to do it without God. And that's how you get tired. That's how you take breaks in your business. That's how you zone out of your family and you tune out, and you're not dialed into what's going on with your marriage or your children or your business. And we turn to things to cope when we're trying to figure out, okay, why am I shutting down? Why am I not mentally stable? Why am I not, getting what I need? Because I guarantee you, if you didn't have Jesus, the PTSD, all that stuff would take over, and then your wife will be affected by that, and then there'll be bad communication, then the kids will see it, then they'll start to feel it, then the separation start happening, then your clientele won't get what they need out of you. So everything becomes a mess when we try to do it ourselves, because without God we can do nothing.
You hit it on the head. He is the glue.
Yes.
He is the glue. Holds everything together.
He is the glue.
The glue, yes.
And that's what I feel with men or women, whatever goals that we have in family or in ministry or business, whatever. We can't forget that we have to do it through Christ. 100%. Let Christ order your steps. That's the perfect way to do it. Yeah. Because when we do it through ourselves, that's how we get discouraged. We're like, oh, I had this good business deal and it fell through. It didn't work. Why didn't it work? Like, did you ask God? Did you ask his permission before you made that deal? Did you ask his permission and guidance before you did something? Did you use discernment? Did you use wisdom? Like, how did we get this done? Same thing, going into marriages or creating families, like ask God, how do I do this? God created, the idea of marriage. God created the house, and just like the levels it goes in, God, spouse, kids, and ministry and work and so forth. So it's just like, if he's the one who created the blueprint, why wouldn't you go to him to get the answers and how to navigate through this thing called life? Because God brought you here. Yeah. So if God brought you here, you're like, all right, God, you brought me here, so tell me how to do this. 100%. And we can't try to do it ourselves, become our own gods and try to do it, because it will not prosper. It will fall apart. It will crumble somewhere down the line, and you'll only get so far when God, and I've always told people, God will begin in your life where you end. Yeah. When you ready, because God will ask you. He's asked me before in my life too, are you done? And I'm like, all right, for real this time, I'm done. I might try to take the wheel, and God is like, stay in the passenger seat. Let me drive the car. And then we still be holding on to the wheel, like, nah, God, take this right here. I think we should go this way, or we should do this, but we don't realize how much control we try to have over our lives. And the more control of you holding on, that's how you get the anxiety. That's how you get the panic attacks. That's how you get the discouragement and feeling like a failure and all this, because you need to let go. Yep. God's like, give it to me. He's like, my yoke is easy. Yeah. And all your burdens, put it on me. So when you stress, things are going on, things ain't working out at work, give it to the Lord, and I promise, it's like a peace. It's like a weight lifted up off of you. And like I said,
I do remember going through all those emotions in the past. Yes. So like, as you're saying it right now, I'm reliving all those, because I do remember doing that, right? Mm-hmm. The more I tried to hold on to control and do things my own way, right? All the issues that I had as far as my PTSD were at its highest, mm-hmm. right? And so, yeah, I do remember all that. Mm-hmm. And then when I came to the end of myself, all right, God, I'm backing off. Mm-hmm. And the moment he took 100% control, all that started going away. Right. And so when you just said it, just like, wow, it just hit it right there, brought it right back. And it's like, yeah, my life has been so much easier the moment I just stopped holding on the steering wheel and just let him, be in the driver's seat.
Yeah, it's less stress on us.
Yes, yeah.
It is, because we done crashed the car, and some of us will get in the car and drive it with no insurance.
Yep.
And then crash it and then go back to God. Like, God, can you fix this? And God's like, okay. And God ain't the one to be like, oh, now you want my help. He's with humility. He'll be like, all right, just come back in.
And then we always did the human thing too. So once we decide to drive the car and mess it all up, then we turn around and blame God. Like, hold on. Did all that, and then you turn around and you blame me. Hold on. But when I stop doing that, right, become more accountable to my actions, this and that, third, and let him like, okay, all right, it was all me. He had nothing to do with it. He would just wait for me to let go. Right?
That's funny, because I did see something about that, and people were talking about like, well, we'll blame God for all of our problems, but it's the main things that we were doing that God told us not to do.
Exactly.
So we brought it on ourselves, and then I run into people, I'm angry with God or this and that, but I'm just like, but you chose that situation. You chose that marriage. You chose that relationship. You chose to go to that job. You chose this, and a lot of times as man, we don't hold ourselves accountable for what we do in the decisions, because whether we want to just admit it, we make choices every day. That's why God gives us free will. We make choices every day. You make choice to brush your teeth in the morning. You make choices just to either go to work or not go to work. You make choices every day, every second. I forget the amount of choices they say we make a day, but it was in the thousands. But crazy. We have the free will to make all these choices, but still blame God.
Yep, 100%.
I get it when there's things that are out of your control and they affect you. But that's the healing process you got to go through when things happen in life that we don't know why. We don't know why God might take our parent. We don't know why God might take our kid away, or why we went through certain traumas. But, his thoughts are not our thoughts. His ways of thinking are way above, the minute ways that we think. So, but a lot of the decisions that we make every day is we feel like we're in like a prison and we can't get out. But you have the keys. It is your decision. Like, make the choice. It might be hard to make the choice, but make the choice. And that's just for today and the generation we're in now. Make the choice to follow God. Make the choice. Like, people get so angry and they just want to do it their own way. But I'm like, why? I don't want to be out here trying to figure this life out on my own. I have no control over my life. I have no control over when my last breath that I take. You don't even have control when you go to sleep at night. You don't tell your brain work, run the blood everywhere, and make sure you wake me up at this time. Your body does what the Lord allows it to do. Exactly. And we just need to let go. Let go and let God walk on faith. And I feel that's what you do every day.
That's the best decision of my life I ever made. Best decision out of everything. That was the best decision I ever made in my life, right? One, surrender my life to Christ. And then two, like, even when I did, let go of the wheel and let him just drive, right? And then everything it goes into place.
Yeah,
that's the best advice I can give anybody.
And that's good advice. And the first thing that popped in my mind, I like I said, I love the family. I love how it works together. How much easier does that make that when your wife, and she sounds like a biblical wife, where she falls in line and trusts your leadership and your judgment? How much easier as a man of faith and a husband does that make your life?
1,000 times easier, just like, we're human, we fall in the flesh, but sometimes, she'll like, well, maybe not listen to Dajaun today. Right. It is. All of a sudden she's like, yeah, you were kind of right. Right. So, I mean, we know we still deal with that. Right. And so, and I told her too, like, anytime I don't listen to God, right, I'm just like, why did that? Oh yeah. Cause I didn't listen to him. So, it goes, two-way street, but we've grown together, it'll be 9 years of marriage coming up in November. And then, so we both like learned to grow that, me with the Father, and then her and me. And then also too, right, sometimes we may have whatever minor disagreement, like, let's come together and kind of figure this out, and let's bring it both to, the Father, and what answer is he going to give for the situation that we're in. And they never gave us the wrong answer.
Oh, you never will.
Never will.
And a lot of times they'll tell you something you don't want to hear.
Exactly.
And that's how another way it's him. And you be like, God, why? Like I gotta forgive today, or I gotta go in there and apologize. Okay, I was wrong.
Yeah.
Yes. And that, like I said, I love that. And I love like just the family aspect, because in today's generation, the family's broken.
Yes, it is.
It's broken, and no one, and it's not that it's the fault of the people. It's the fact that we don't know. We, like you said, your dad had a lot of influence on you of how to be a man and how to lead. And a lot of men, especially Black men, don't have that in the home of how to lead and how to be leaders and how to take care of a family. So they kind of just go in the world, and the world teaches them. And we all know the world's ways are the wrong way.
Yeah.
And they learn from out there on the streets how to love a woman, how to be a husband, how to be a father. And that's why everything is just broken. And that's why I appreciate just you as a person and everything that you bring to this world, and why God has you here, because you are kind of like a walking image of what a man of God should do. It's not that you got to go out here and be a pastor or be an evangelist or anything. You are an evangelist in your own line of work, and it's your ministry.
Yeah.
God will put you places to reach people that maybe that pastor at your church might not be able to reach, you know? So that's why we all got to learn our lane. We all got to learn where we fit in the body of Christ and how we fit in and what part of the body we are. And even though you might be the finger and not the brain or whatever, you're still just as important, because you have an assignment, you have a job.
Exactly.
And not a lot of people answer that call on their life or figure out that call on their life, and which is kind of sad. I was telling my Bible study group this past weekend that, you know, and I've heard a lot of influencers say this, that, you know, the richest place in the world is the graveyard, because there's so many people there that never answered that call on their life, and their talents and gifts that God gave them when they were born went with them. And they were never used for the world. They were never used to bring that light to the world, and it went with them. And I always tell people, we got to learn to step outside of ourselves. When you, this is how you know you're doing God's work. Whenever you're serving, if you're doing a service for people and you're helping to make people better, that's how you know you're in alignment with God's will for your life. 100%. And while you're doing that, you're also giving word, and you're showing God's love, and you're giving yourself for your brethren. You give yourself for your wife. You give yourself for your children. You give yourself for all of the people that work with you and train with you. And the most valuable thing that a man can give is his time. Because you can't get the time back, and you can't store it up somewhere and save it, put it in on a island account, whatever. Once it's gone, it's gone. And what you spend your time, and, you know, when we all go meet the Lord one day, and then the Lord may look at us and be like, what did you do with the time I gave you? And he can see everything you did with your time, that you invested in people. Because God is in the business of people and making people better and loving people. And that is your love that you give to people and pour into them and make them better. And I think that's just...
Thank you.
Your
and
gift.
I do have passion for it. That's the thing about it. Like, I really love doing it. Like, I love, you know, man, like, you know, like, so one of my other clients, he's down like 82, he lost 84 pounds, right, since November. And then every time he checks in, and it's just like, I love that, right? And so love seeing I can, you know, have that influence on his life and change his life for the better. And he's happier every single time. And, you know, like, hey, we're going to hit that goal of 100 pounds in less than a year. And I love doing that, right? I get the same joy as a client losing 50 to 100 pounds. That's the same joy, you know, I have my athlete winning, you know, the overall championship. Same joy I have whenever, you know, I'm winning a show and going to the Olympia. I get the same joy across the board on every spectrum, and I love doing it. That's my passion. So, you know, so long as, you know, they're winning and following my direction, the gift I was given from the Lord, right? Then that makes me extremely happy. And what I, you know, continue to do is like, I'm doing the right thing. I give a purpose, you know, and God's purpose.
And that's good. And like I said, it's good that you answered the call on your life. And I would just say, like, final words for just a man looking for his purpose. Like, where should he start? I think I know the answer, but go ahead.
I will tell, you know, start in the word, right? You know, whenever you're lost out in the world, not knowing what you want to do. And I had this conversation with one of my younger athletes, you know, 18, 19 years old. You know, he tried to do EMT school. He failed the first time. You know, he started having like suicidal thoughts. And I was like, he was texting me, and I just like dropped everything and I called him. I need to talk to you right now. Right. And that's what I gave him, that advice. I'm like, man, you know how young you are, right? You know how many times I failed and stumbled in this life, right? And I've gone through so many different career paths, but like, even the last time when I stumbled and failed, like, I went back on my knees, went to the Father, God in the Word, reached out to Him, and I asked Him to show me what's His purpose for my life, not what I want to do with my life, but His purpose for my life, right? And so that's the best advice I can give any person. What I gave to that young athlete: get in your Word, talk to the Lord, go back to the house of God, right? Go get your hands and knees at night. You go directly to Him, and He will show you your purpose, right? And then if you pray like what you want to do, and He keeps closing that door, that means He doesn't want you to do that, right?
I love that.
He means no.
I love that.
He means no.
I love that, because
right?
some people act like they don't know the door is closed, and they keep trying to open it, and God's like, close, and then they get discouraged with it. But I love that you said that. Exactly.
Like, when I was trying to be in law enforcement, He kept saying no, 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 no. I kept trying to kick down that door for many years. Then I was like, why? And then all of a sudden, here I am, right? So I gave him the same advice, right? And then now he's doing that. He reached out to me actually the other day, Coach, I'm doing this and that, and God's good. And so that's the best advice I can give to somebody. You go to the Father, you go to Jesus Christ, and you ask Him what is His will for your life, and then let Him just order your steps. Right, and then order your steps. You keep following the footsteps. That's it.
Right. And you wouldn't know what His footsteps were if you weren't walking behind Him.
Exactly.
Yes, I love that. But yes, well, Juan, I appreciate you. I appreciate you for coming here today. I appreciate the words of wisdom that you can give to this generation, and a lot of the young men out here looking to be leaders. And I just pray that a lot of them rise up and know that their strength is in the Lord.
Yes.
It's not in these streets. It's not in other people. It's not in relationships. It's in the Lord. That direct relationship with the Lord will give them the strength to be everything they want to be. If they want to be ambitious and follow their goals, if they want to provide for a family, if they want to be a father, we know you're doing it.
Exactly.
Superman.
Thank you.
Yes.
And thank you for having me. I definitely enjoyed myself. And if you invite me back again, I will definitely come back again on a different topic. But I definitely.
I know we can talk about.
We talk about so much stuff. Yeah, but I definitely enjoy. And thank you for having me. I really enjoyed myself. And
I appreciate
expressing what I go through on a daily basis. Some things you brought to me, I didn't even look at it that way until I'm like, I had no idea, right? But thank you.
I appreciate you. All right. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. And we'll be back with more stuff. So you guys know we got more stuff coming. So we thank Dajaun for coming here today. And thank you for watching this episode of Christian Girl.